Throughout history, we've watched empires rise and then slowly fall. From ancient Rome to the British Empire, one pattern keeps repeating. The moment an empire starts to believe it's invincible is usually the moment everything begins to change. And now, right in our very eyes, that same pattern may be playing out once again. The fall of the modern era's superpower, the American Empire. For nearly 80 years, Washington has helped shape the global order through alliances, diplomacy, and unmatched economic influence. For a long time, no other military power came close to matching its reach or capability. However, if we look closer, we'll realize an alternative reality. Over time, America's position on the global stage is no longer as unshakable as it once was, and one country has been steadily challenging that dominance across multiple fronts: China. But for some, that decline was never something to accept. That's where Donald Trump enters the story. A billionaire businessman turned political outsider came in with a bold promise to reverse the decline. He spoke of a golden age, a return to strength, a restoration of respect, a nation rising again to inspire awe across the world. And he was convinced he was the one who could make it happen. But history books might not favor him. The same leader who promised to restore American power is also seen by critics as the one whose decisions may have actually accelerated the very decline he was trying to stop. President Trump has made several controversial decisions in the past, including the US-led operation that resulted in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. However, none could match the decision carried out on February 28 this year. Some argue that this moment may have marked a turning point, one that ultimately accelerated America's long-term decline. On this historic day, the US, together with Israel, launched a precision strike against Iran. At first, it appeared overwhelming in its speed and precision. Within days, Iran's leadership was decapitated, its defenses dismantled, its military infrastructure severely damaged. The world watched as American air power once again seemed unmatched. For a brief moment, it looked like dominance had been restored. Even China's supplied air defense systems were unable to change the outcome, reinforcing the perception that the United States still stood in a class of its own. But something that even Trump didn't expect happened. Iran shifted the center of gravity away from direct confrontation. It didn't try to match the American force. Instead, it targeted something far more critical. Iran just realized that they had a strategic leverage over one of the most important choke points on the planet, the Strait of Hormuz. This nation decided to close the strait from traffic and launched drone strikes on some passing ships. When this happened, it sent chills on shippers, effectively halting the inflow and outflow of the world's most important commodity, fuel. It became clear that Iran wasn't just disrupting the strait, it was already controlling it. The balance of power had shifted. Caught off guard, Trump escalated. The rhetoric intensified. Warnings grew more severe, speaking of destruction and consequences that would extend far beyond the battlefield. Talks in Islamabad collapsed. The conflict widened. The US tried to neutralize Iran's hold on the choke point by launching blockades on those ships coming from Iran's ports. As the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz drags on, something deeper is unfolding right in front of us. Alliances begin to strain. Authority starts to lose its edge. That image of overwhelming strength slowly fades, replaced by something far more uncertain, far more fragile. And the long era that followed World War II, what many came to call Pax Americana, no longer feels permanent. It feels like it is beginning to slip away. As both sides move toward a negotiated end to the crisis, this new reality is likely to solidify further. And as talks progress, one demand from Iran becomes increasingly central. It's about securing control of the Strait of Hormuz and turning it into a permanent toll gate, even after the conflict ends. If this demand is accepted, this is more than a simple policy shift. Rather, it becomes a turning point. This is exactly the kind of moment historians would love to look back and say, this is where the old world order began to come apart. For as long as modern global trade has existed, the Strait of Hormuz has never truly belonged to any one country. It has always been treated as something larger than that, an international waterway, a narrow but critical passage connecting the energy-rich Persian Gulf to the wider world. Under the rules of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, waterways like this are supposed to remain open. No restrictions on innocent passage, just free and uninterrupted movement for global trade. But if Iran gets its way, it would change everything. It's not just influence over the Strait of Hormuz for a moment in time. It's something far more permanent, a formal recognition of control, a structured toll system, reportedly around $2 million per vessel. Right now, countries like Saudi Arabia hold a huge amount of influence because of something called spare oil capacity. Basically, the ability to quickly increase or reduce supply and stabilize global prices. Along with their neighbors in the Gulf, they act like shock absorbers for the entire world economy. But all of that power depends on one simple thing: that oil can actually get out. But if Iran totally controls the strait, the balance flips almost overnight. This nation would slow it down when it wants pressure, open it when it wants relief, block it when it wants leverage. Iran, in effect, sets the rhythm of the world's energy outflow. The consequences could go even further. You start seeing the world drift back towards something older, less like globalization, more like mercantilism. Trade routes taxed, controlled, and contested. Even Indonesia is starting to view the Strait of Malacca in a similar way. They're looking at the possibility of making it as a source of strategic leverage over global trade. In the end, whatever the outcome of the Strait of Hormuz crisis, there is one thing you can already see happening. The world is no longer looking at the United States the way it once did, not as untouchable and not as invincible. What has changed is not just its military image, but its aura of certainty. The belief that American power could not be seriously tested has been shaken in front of a global audience. And once that perception breaks, it can't easily be rebuilt. As they say, empires don't lose on wars alone. They fall when the world stops believing they cannot lose. So do you think the American empire has fallen?